When I look back on that night, I still cringe at how badly I miscalculated. I had convinced myself that my plan was clever, even empowering, that it would remind everyone who really had control in our relationship. But instead, I handed him the stage, and he owned it in a way I never saw coming. That night changed the way people saw me, the way I saw myself, and most importantly, the way I saw him. It all began with what should have been an ordinary gathering. Daniel and I had been invited to a friend's dinner party. One of those evenings where everyone brings a dish, the wine flows freely, and conversations spiral into laughter-filled debates. Normally, I loved these events. I was known for my sharp wit, for my ability to keep the room entertained with stories and jokes. But that particular night, I felt overshadowed. Daniel had recently landed a huge contract at work, and everyone knew about it. It was all anyone seemed to want to talk about. As soon as we arrived, people flocked to him, clapping him on the back, raising glasses in his honor. "Congrats, Daniel. You're killing it, man." I smiled tightly, standing beside him like some prop while he soaked in the attention he hadn't even asked for. You have to understand, Daniel wasn't the type who chased recognition. He never bragged about his wins, never demanded the spotlight. But people admired him precisely for that. He exuded this effortless confidence, this quiet competence that made others trust and respect him. And as I stood there, watching everyone shower him with praise, I felt something ugly rise inside me, resentment. I didn't want to just be Daniel's wife. I wanted to be the star again. And in that moment, I made a reckless decision. I would take back the spotlight by making him the butt of the joke. It started small. While people were complimenting him, I piped up with a sarcastic quip. "Oh, you mean the guy who can't even change a light bulb without Googling it? That Daniel?" A few guests laughed politely, though it was more awkward than genuine. Daniel hurt, but I swallowed it. I told myself maybe I was being too sensitive. Until one night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Matthew invited me to his company's annual party, a big fancy event for his tech firm. I was nervous about meeting his colleagues, so I spent hours getting ready. I bought a new dress, did my hair, and even practiced small talk in the mirror because I wanted to make a good impression. But the entire night, Matthew barely acknowledged me. When he did introduce me, it was never as his girlfriend by name, or with any detail about who I was. He would laugh and say, "This is the one who puts up with me." That's it. Not my name. Not my career. Nothing about me. Just the one who puts up with me. At one point, I stood next to him as he chatted with a group of his colleagues. I smiled, waiting for him to bring me into the conversation. He glanced at me once and then looked away, continuing like I wasn't even there. I finally excused myself to the bathroom, trying to hold back tears. Later that night, in the car, I confronted him. "Do you even realize how you made me feel tonight?" I asked. He sighed dramatically. "What are you talking about? You ignored me. You didn't even introduce me to people properly." And he laughed. He actually laughed. "You're being crazy. You just can't handle me getting attention from other people." I felt like I had been punched in the chest. When I told our friends about the fight, I thought at least one of them would understand. Instead, they doubled down on what he said. "You know how social he is. Maybe you're overthinking it. Honestly, you can be kind of dramatic sometimes." It was like déjà vu. The same dismissal, only this time it cut deeper because it came from people I trusted. Still, I stayed with him. For another 6 months. I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just what relationships were like after the honeymoon phase. But the truth was nothing changed. Every event, every gathering, I was an accessory. Not a partner. And every time I tried to talk about it, I was told I was making a big deal out of nothing. The breaking point came during a weekend trip with our friend group. We were sitting around a fire, sharing stories. I started telling a funny one from my childhood. Halfway through, Matthew interrupted. "Oh, you've told this one before," he said loudly. "Let me tell it better." And he did. He retold my story, exaggerated the details, and got everyone laughing. But the laughter wasn't about the story. It was about him. He had hijacked my memory, my voice, and made it his stage. I sat there in silence, humiliated. And what stung the most wasn't just that he did it. It was that not one person in that circle spoke up for me. Not one friend said, "Let her finish," or "Hey, that was her story." That's when I realized I could never win in this group. They weren't my friends. They were his. 2 weeks later, I broke up with him. At first, the group did the obligatory thing, sending a few sorry to hear that texts. But almost immediately, the distance grew. Invitations stopped coming. When I reached out, there was always some excuse. "Oh, it was last minute," or "It was just a small thing." Then I saw the Instagram posts. Trips, game nights, parties. All the same group, still intact, only now without me. And yes, Matthew was still there. That's when it finally clicked. They had never really been our friends. They had always been his. It's been a year since then, and I've built a whole new circle. Friends who ask about my day and actually listen to the answer. Friends who introduce me by name and don't feel the need to cut me down for a laugh. Friends who make me feel like I don't have to earn a spot at the table. Sometimes I come across photos of my old group, smiling together at some party or trip, and I expect to feel bitter. But I don't. What I feel instead is relief. Because losing people who were never truly on my side, that wasn't a loss. That was freedom. And freedom, I've learned, feels a lot like finally being seen.